Welcome to part 2 of my n8n Masterclass series, where I take you from someone who's never stepped inside of n8n to someone who's actually able to build AI solutions either for yourself or for others. So before we go any further, let's just quickly talk about what we covered inside of part 1. So we started off by talking about n8n's different hosting options. We've got cloud hosting, self-hosting and local hosting. We talked about the advantages and disadvantages of all of those. We then signed up for n8n's cloud version, and the reason that we chose the cloud is just because it's convenient and it's easy to set up, and if you're a beginner, it's absolutely fine. We then went on to navigating the n8n user interface. We had a look at the different screens and the different settings that you will see inside of n8n. We then talked about triggers. What is a trigger? Well, a trigger is what kicks your workflow into action. No workflow can start without a trigger, so that's a really important concept that you need to understand. We then added our first AI agent node to our canvas, and we're going to be coming back to what AI agents actually are in this lesson and how they differ from AI automations. We then covered credentials, documentation, and API keys. Credentials are how you connect any third-party service to your n8n instance. Documentation is a guided document that explains to you how you can connect to third-party services, and API keys is like a password that gets sent between n8n and a third party so that they can verify who you are, that you've got billing, and effectively that you're approved to make requests. We then covered model selection. How do you know which model you need to use for your specific use case? We then covered logs and executions. So what are logs? Well, logs are a detailed breakdown of everything that happened in a specific execution. And an execution is a log of every time your automation or workflow has run. We then covered memory. So memory is what gives our AI agent the ability to remember what we've said to it. And if you didn't watch part 1, I used the example of telling my AI agent when my birthday was. I then asked it when my birthday was and it couldn't tell me. So we then added memory and that resolved that. So any AI agent needs to have memory. If it doesn't, it's effectively useless. Finally, we covered system messages. Now, this is something which we're going to cover again today because system messages are extremely important. That is the internal set of instructions which our AI agent is going to follow. So if we give it access to multiple different tools and different tasks, it knows which order to carry out those tasks and which tools to call in which circumstances. So the first thing that we're going to cover in today's lesson is what is the difference between an AI agent and an AI automation, because you really need to understand the fundamental differences between the two. So what you're looking at here is a graph RAG AI agent, and AI agents have access to different tools. And the way that that AI agent decides which tools to use is down to the user's input, right? It will decide based on your input or your prompt which tools it needs to use. And it does that by referring to its internal set of instructions, which is the system prompt. An automation, on the other hand, it's linear, right? It doesn't decide what to do. It knows what to do. It's predefined. It starts here on the left and it works its way over to the right. Now, automations also work from top to bottom. So this automation will first come up here. Once that's done, it will then come down and it will work its way top to bottom, left to right. And whilst we're here, now is a good time to talk about what we're actually going to be building across this series. So what you see here is a RAG agent, and this is what we're going to be building throughout this masterclass series. And the reason that I've structured the series in this manner is so that by the end of the series, you will have actually built an agent which has real world value. We could go through 100 different automations which are absolutely useless in the real world, but by the end of this series, you will have built an agent which you can actually sell to businesses for a premium. So picking up from where we left off in the last lesson, we built this little AI agent which is effectively a clone of ChatGPT, right? We can talk to it through our chat trigger, and our agent has access to an OpenAI chat model and has simple memory so it can remember what we said. Now, as you can see here, we also have tools, and if we hit this plus button here, there are thousands, literally thousands of different tools which we can add to our AI agent. And the way that that AI agent is going to use those tools is going to depend on our input. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some of the Gmail ones. So let's add Gmail, send a message. Let's add Drive, and let's also add Perplexity. So we have now added 3 different tools to our agent. As you can see, these nodes that we've added have little red triangles. Now, what that triangle is telling us is that the node hasn't been configured, and that is okay. So we're going to configure some of these. Now, if you remember in the last lesson, when we connected to OpenAI, we need to generate an API key. And an API key tells the third party who we are and that we're approved to make requests. And it's no different for any of the other third party services which you want to connect to your n8n instance. It is most likely that you will need some form of API key or client secret in order to connect your account to n8n. The reason that we're doing some of the Google ones is because Google make it particularly difficult to connect to your n8n instance compared to some other third parties like Perplexity, where it's nice and easy. So if you remember, in the last lesson we talked about documentation, and you might be thinking, well, if I wasn't following this video, how the hell would I know what to do? And the answer is always in the documentation. So that is what we're going to do. We're going to click in here and we're going to select credential and we're going to create a new credential. So from there, you're going to see this screen pop up and you're always going to go to Open Docs. Now, this isn't just something you need to do when you're a beginner. If I'm connecting a new third-party service to my n8n, either for myself or for a client, I always come to the documentation. That is the easiest place for you to start. If you get stuck, you can then take that documentation to a large language model and ask it to give you a steer. So we're going to follow the documentation. So hit Open Docs. And now we're just going to follow the steps on the documentation. So it says prerequisites, create a Google Cloud account. So if you don't have a Google Cloud account, you'll need to create one. So let's do that just now. So you've created your Google Cloud account. Let's go back to the documentation and see what the next step is. So it says create a Google Cloud console project. So let's go back to Google Cloud and we're going to go to console up in the top right. From there, up in the top left, you're going to see your project now. If you haven't created a project before, then you'll just need to create one for the first time. So click on this and then you're going to hit add new project. You're going to give your project a name. So I'm just going to call this one n8n Masterclass. Organization, that's fine, and hit create. So you're now inside of your Google Console project. So let's go back to the documentation and see what the next thing we need to do is. So it says here that we need to enable APIs. So with your project created, enable the APIs you'll need access to. Access your Google Cloud Console library, make sure that you're in the correct project, and from there go to APIs Services Library, search for the APIs that you want to enable, Gmail node. So let's go ahead and do that. The documentation said we need to go to APIs and Services, so that's where we're going to go. You're going to see that down here under Quick Access, APIs and Services. So click in there, and now up the top you can add all of the different APIs which you want access to. So you need to add these one by one and it's a little bit time consuming. So I'm going to speed this up, but just add all of the main ones which you want. So I would recommend Drive, Calendar, Contacts, Sheets, and any of the others which you think you're going to use. Once you have added all the APIs which you want access to, we're going to go back to the documentation, and it says the next thing we need to do is configure your OAuth consent screen. If you haven't used OAuth in your Google Cloud project before, you'll need to configure the OAuth consent screen. So let's do that right now. So it says here in the left navigation menu, go to APIs and Services, OAuth consent screen. So we're already there, so you're going to come down to OAuth consent screen here on the left hand side, and you're going to hit get started. Now you're going to give your app a name. I'm just going to call this n8n Masterclass. User support email, just put in any email as long as you have access to it, that's going to be fine. Hit next. Internal or external, so this is going to be internal. And we're going to hit next. Contact information, just put your email in here again. Next. Agree to the services, continue, and create. The next thing we need to do is in the left hand menu select branding. In the authorized domain section select add domain. If you're using n8n's cloud service, which we are, add n8n.cloud. So let's copy this here. Copy, come back over to Google Cloud, branding, scroll down, authorized domains, add domain, n8n.cloud, save. The next step in the documentation is to create our OAuth client credentials. So come back to your Google Cloud account. If you're still inside of branding, just go back to overview. And here on the right hand side, you will see create OAuth client. So let's click on that. Application type is going to be web application. I'm going to give this a name. I'm going to call mine n8n Masterclass. You call yours what you want. You're going to see down here authorized redirect URIs. Now, this is where we need to add in a value which we're going to get from n8n. So Let's go back over to n8n, and we're going to click inside one of the Google apps. We're then going to go to create new credential. You see OAuth 2. You see this here, OAuth redirect URL. We're going to copy that. We're going to come back over to Google Cloud, and we're going to go to add URI, and we're going to paste that in there, right? Then we're going to hit create. Now what you're going to see is your client ID pop up. So copy your client ID, head back over to n8n, and we're going to paste that client ID in there. And now we can hit OK. And now what we need to do is we need to click into our OAuth client ID. Now what you'll see is your client secrets. So client secret is here, and you can copy that. Once you've copied it, we can go back over to n8n, client secret, paste that in. Now, you don't need to see this. If you do want to see it, you can hit expression, and don't worry, I will be deleting this after the video. You should never be giving out your client secrets to anybody, so keep these under lock and key. So hide it again by hitting fixed. And that is us. Now we can just hit sign in with Google, click on that, click on your account, and that is going to be you good to go. Just allow the different things here, and it should come up saying connection successful. You have now connected the most annoying third-party API to your n8n instance, and no, they are not all as difficult as that. Most of them are extremely simple and can be done in under a minute. So you only need to do that once, you won't need to do that again, so that is the worst part out of the way. So now let's actually configure this G Drive node. So click in here, and you're going to see all of the different node settings popping up. So running from the top down, we have our credential at the top, which is what we've just connected. Underneath there, you have the tool description. Set automatically is fine. You don't really need to mess around with that. Resource is what you're actually wanting to mess around with. Is it files? Is it files and folders? Is it just folders? Is it a custom API call? So we're going to leave that as file for now. Operation, upload, download, update, copy, delete. This is what you're actually doing inside of Drive. Are you copying a file? Are you moving a file? Are you downloading a file? So we're going to leave that at upload for now. Underneath there, we have the input data field name. Now we're uploading a file, so that is what we're actually going to call the file. That's what we're going to name the file, which we're uploading into our Drive. Now, you see this button here over on the right? Let the model define this parameter. This is allowing AI to actually decide what we're going to name that file, right? And you can see we can do the same thing down the bottom with parent drive and parent folder. So this is where AI shines, right? This is allowing AI to decide, based on whatever it's doing, what it's going to name that file or where it's going to place that file within our Drive. So this is a really important thing that you need to understand, because as you start to build out agents which have more and more tools, this is where you can really lean on AI to make those decisions for you. Now we're going to configure our Gmail node. So to do that, let's head inside of this Gmail here, and we're going to create a new credential. So because we've already connected our Google account to our n8n instance, we can now just hit sign in with Google. We don't need to go through that entire process again. Click the account you want to connect, and then hit continue, and that should be you good to go. So inside of our node here, we're going to go through the settings again. So tool description set automatically is fine. Resource is message. Do you want to send a message, send a draft? We're going to send a draft, so I'm going to leave that like that. Operation, what is it you actually want to do? Do you want to create? Do you want to delete, get, or get many? Subject, now we can hard code a value in here, or again, we can use this, let the model define this parameter, which is what I would suggest that you do, because every time we ask our agent to do something, it's not always going to be the same task, right? So if we hard code something in here, every time it sends a draft, or creates a draft, sorry, it's going to use hello as the subject line, which is probably not what you want. So we're going to use this, let the model define this parameter here, and same for the message. We want the model to define what the message is going to say as well. Down the bottom we have options. So if you hit this, you're going to see a number of different options. Now you probably want to know who you're sending the email to, right? So you can click on to email, and that is going to add a to email box where you can put any sort of email in here. So I can put in my own email, or again, you can use let the model define this parameter, but that brings us on to a problem. So let's say we say let the model define this parameter, okay? And I say to my AI agent, email John. Let's see what he says. There you go. Could you please provide the content of the email you want to send to John and his email address? So it doesn't have his email address, right? That is an issue that we need to solve. What we can do is, if we add another tool here, contacts, what this is now going to do is, the AI agent is going to say, right, he wants to email John. I don't have John's email address, so how am I going to find that? I'm going to use the contacts tool first, get John's email address, and then I'm going to send the email. Will the agent always be able to figure out intelligently what path to take and in which order to do things? Probably not. So instead of setting up this contacts node, what we're going to do instead is we're going to be taking a deeper look at system messages. Now, we covered them in the last lesson, and as a quick recap, the system message is an internal set of instructions which your AI agent will always follow every time you give it a task. So let's get rid of this contact node for now, and we're going to jump in here and have a look at the system message. So what should your system message include? Well, it should definitely include a list of the tools which the agent has. It should definitely include in which order it should use them, and it should definitely also include edge cases and examples, right? So you might be thinking, how am I supposed to know what to put in this system message? And I would always tell you to lean on AI as much as you possibly can, right? So what we're going to do is, we're going to come over to Claude. Now, it doesn't need to be Claude. You can use Gemini 3 or you can use OpenAI or ChatGPT. But my suggestion would be, if you're serious about automation and learning in this space, I would be using either Claude or Gemini 3. ChatGPT's models just aren't as strong. Claude, I like it because it's the strongest coding model, so there are times when you're building more complex builds which you will need to use code nodes, and I don't know how to code, right? The good news is AI knows how to code, Claude knows how to code. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in here, can you write me a system message for an AI agent with access to the following tools? And it's got a Gmail send message tool. It's got a Perplexity web search tool. It's got a Google Drive upload docs tool. Also include examples and edge cases. You should also include in which order the AI agent should use these tools. Now, Claude is going to get to work on that. And as I say, the more detail you put in your system prompt, the better. So let's have a look here, what it's going to give us. So Claude's finished populating the system message, and that took a while. And as you can see, it's given us an extremely detailed system prompt. Now, do you need all this information in there for a basic agent like what we've got right now? No, you don't. However, we're going to stick with this just in the interest of keeping the video short. So what I'm going to actually say is, can you give me this in markdown format so I can copy and paste? Because if you try and paste this in this format into your system message, it might take it, it might not. So the best thing to do is always just ask Claude to give you it in markdown format. I should have said that in the initial prompt, but I forgot. So here we go. It's going to create that markdown file for us. And once it's done that, we're going to head back over to n8n and we're going to paste the system prompt in there. Claude's now finished generating that markdown prompt for us, and if you can see here, if you are using Claude, if you're using something else, just ignore this, but what happens is it gives you this like view tab, and then if you click on this here, can you see this little slash? Then if you click on that, that's going to give you it in proper markdown format, which you can now copy, and you can go back to n8n and paste that right into your system message. Now, if you want to be able to see this properly, what you can do is you can hit expression, and then you can hit this little square button here, and that's going to bring it up so you can see it full size. So remember I said when we were talking about the Google Contacts node, will your agent always be able to figure out, right, I need to do A before B, Maybe, maybe not. So I'm going to show you here using the system prompt how we can hard code that in so that we're not relying on luck or we're not leaving it to chance that the AI agent will figure it out properly. We're going to actually tell it how it's going to do that. So there are two ways which we can do this. If we were sticking with the Google Contacts node, then what we could have done here is we could have said critical instruction. We could say always use the Google Contact node first when I ask you to send an email to find the correct person's email address, right? So we could have done it that way, and this is now we're now telling the AI agent, this is what you need to do to find the right person's contact details, right? What we're actually going to do to save a little bit of time in the video is we're going to remove this here, and we're going to say, I'm just going to add in a simple note saying that Fraser's email address is fraser@leadhook.co, right? And then we're going to come out here. And we're going to open our chat input, and we're going to actually test this out, right? So we're going to say, send or create a draft email to Fraser, asking him what time he wants to meet for coffee tomorrow. So you can see chat message hits memory, it hits our create a draft, and then hits our OpenAI node again, generates its response. So if we open up the logs, right, you can see here a list of everything that happened during that execution. So let's run through this from the top. So it received our chat message, it went into our AI agent, it then updated its simple memory, it hit the OpenAI chat model, it then created the draft in Gmail, it updated memory again, and then it generated its response to us before updating the memory one more time, right? So this is one way which you can actually see what happened. Now if we click into this create a draft in Gmail, it looks as though it has actually done it, right? Because it says to email, it's got the message, it's got the subject. But what we can do is let's actually check to make sure that it's not just telling us it did it, let's make sure it actually did it. So I'll go in my drafts, you can see here, coffee meeting tomorrow. It's got the email address from the system prompt. It's got the subject, and that was why I was showing you how you can let the model define this parameter. The same for the body of the email. We were letting the model define that parameter, so the model has decided what to say, and this draft has worked. So that is all working now. Let's say you don't want it to do this. It says best regards, your name. Let's say you want to actually sign it off with your name. Well, how would we do that? We would just go back into our system prompt, right? So let's close this down. Let's go into our agent. Let's go down to the bottom and let's say critical instruction. You must always sign off any emails with best regards, Fraser AI, right? So let's go back into our chat now, and we're going to say send or create a draft to Fraser, telling him 1 p.m. works fine for coffee tomorrow. And it's going to do the same process. You can see it's created the draft, generates its response. And again, we can have a look at that in the logs. Same process. So let's go back into drafts and have a look. Nothing yet. If we just give this a second. There we go. So it says, this one. Hi Fraser, 1 p.m. works fine for coffee tomorrow. Best regards, Fraser AI. So that is how system messages work in a nutshell. And you can see here how we can now have total control over how our AI agent behaves, how it goes about our tasks, and how it formats things like responses and tool uses, okay? That's going to box off part 2, and whilst it might not seem like you've done much today, we've covered some really important concepts, which are really the foundations for what you're going to be building on in the future lessons, right? System messages, tool uses, how those are linked, and the importance of being able to control the way our agent actually carries out tasks. So part 3 is coming tomorrow, so make sure you're staying tuned for that. And you can also check out my free Skool community. That is a great place where there are free resources such as templates and further guides. And if you're serious about taking your AI journey further, I recommend that you check that out. It's completely free, and you can also get one-to-one support directly from myself.